Hello and welcome back to another UCL Fantasy video. This is going to be the first of a double upload on Sunday afternoon, as we're doing a Limitless guide and we'll do a wildcard guide as well. Now, we're obviously looking at Matchday 3 as we look at this Limitless chip, and I think it's going to be a bit of a popular strategy. You know, it's one that I'm using myself, and I've seen a lot of people also looking to activate the Limitless chip this week. So today we're going to take a look at the fixtures, the best players, some odds as well, and then we'll have a draft at the end for those of you on a Limitless draft. So make sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of the UCL Fantasy videos that we're going to do over the course of the season. So starting off with our fixtures, we're going to look at the best fixtures for Matchday 3 and then the worst fixtures, the ones that you absolutely want to be avoiding. Now, when we're looking at the best ones, obviously when we're looking at the Limitless chip, using the Limitless chip, we want to be utilising the unlimited budget as much as possible. So we want to be trying to triple up, double up on the bigger teams with the more expensive players. So you can see Man City up at the top against Sparta Prague at home in the first game. Now, the issue with Man City is trying to work out who is going to be playing in those games. Of course, the rotation can be quite jarring when it comes to the Champions League. It's definitely something that we want to be keeping an eye on and hoping we can get some team news or leaks before the deadline comes. So definitely one that I want to be looking at, definitely to triple up on Manchester City. Now, Salzburg and Monaco and Girona, to be fair, are all three teams with the other best fixtures. You know, Salzburg have Zagreb, Monaco have Red Star, and Girona have Bratislava. Again, three home fixtures, three really favourable fixtures. However, with these guys, it's probably more favourable for like a wild card or like a free hit within the budget kind of thing, because obviously none of these teams have really expensive players in them. Now, there is obviously players that you can pick out, but you just aren't going to be using the budget as much, which isn't a bad thing. You know, at the end of the day, it's kind of just a free hit to get your team back in match day 4. The budget is just an added bonus, you know, when you're struggling with that. So Salzburg, Monaco, Girona, I think are teams that you could maybe get one, potentially two players from. You probably don't want to be tripling up on them. You know, Salzburg have had a really bad start to the Champions League season. Monaco and Girona have been pretty decent. But you probably wouldn't want to be tripling up on them because they don't have the same amount of quality as like a Manchester City. Now, with the other side, we've got the four teams with other green fixtures, not as good as the ones on the left, but still pretty decent. And that's Atalanta, AC Milan, Inter, and Shakhtar. Now, these are probably teams that you probably want to double up on a lot of these guys. You know, Atalanta, it's probably going to be useful having two. AC Milan, again, one or two players would be nice. Inter against Young Boys, again, another team that's very prone to rotation. So again, you probably want to be looking for early team news on that. Maybe get one or two of those guys in as well. And then, of course, Arsenal. I think the game against Shakhtar at home is a lot more favourable, as it says on paper. So it's one of those ones where Arsenal don't exactly rotate a lot either, so you know who is going to start. You could potentially triple up on Arsenal as well. Now, looking at the worst fixtures, again, teams you want to be avoiding. You know, you don't want any of these guys. This is a 1 week, one match day team. You don't want to be getting anyone with difficult fixtures. So Kane out the window, you know, Elise out the window. All of your Dortmund players that you probably have from match day 1 and 2, you definitely don't want to be having them against Real Madrid away from home for match day 3. So no Bayern, no Dortmund, no PSV if you had them, no Shakhtar, and no Sparta Prague. They're the teams we want to be avoiding for match day 3. So when we're looking at defences, what defenders do we want to be picking? These are the clean sheet odds for match day 3, thanks to FPL Reports, which is a fantastic website for a lot of your Champions League fantasy stuff. So clean sheet odds, of course, you want to be getting defenders from the teams with the higher clean sheet odds. So Man City, again, Vardiol, Lewis, potentially Ederson if you want a goalkeeper, Ruben Diaz, you know, all these players. Akanji, very nice for ball recoveries. You definitely want to be getting probably at least at the very minimum one Man City defender. You know, Man City do tend to score a lot of goals, so it's kind of making the decision on whether you want two Man City attackers or two Man City defenders. That's obviously totally up to you. Arsenal with a high chance of a clean sheet as well. Again, similar to Man City, do you want two attackers or do you want two defenders? I think Gabriel is a good option, potentially like a Saliba as well. Raya in goals if you wanted him. Again, we don't really have to worry about rotation, so it is just picking who you want from those teams. Girona, up there too, obviously playing against Bratislava. There is a lot of good players from Girona that I will be looking at in a little minute if you are debating going for a Girona player. Atletico up there, Sporting up there, Inter up there. Again, all these teams, I think with the 40%, you probably want at least one. You know, I think like Atletico, 48% chance is a decent one, but you want to pick someone who does still have like attacking threat or is good for ball recoveries, just in case the clean sheet doesn't happen. I think when it gets into like the orange fixtures is where it starts to get a little bit difficult. Leverkusen potentially the exception there. You know, 38% is just below the green mark. And obviously their defenders in Frimpong and Grimaldo are very, very good for attacking returns and have both done very well in Matchday 1 and Matchday 2. So that's probably your exception. Obviously you want to be avoiding the defenders from like the red section. There's really no point in going for those guys. So you're aiming for the green ones, more the dark green ones, and then potentially you could have one from the orange ones. Next we've got the goal odds. Now this is the team's chance of scoring over 2 goals, so 3 goals in the match essentially. So this is where you're wanting to get to target teams with good attackers, of course. So City have a 65% chance, Arsenal with a 64% chance. So again, the 2 teams that are highest for clean sheet odds are also the 2 teams that are highest to score a lot of goals as well. So again, it just kind of like it makes things easier when trying to decide if you want to double or triple up on these teams. I think City and Arsenal are clearly the 2 favourites to do well this week, so you probably want to triple up on both of them on the Limitless, and of course they do have expensive players, which makes it even better. So triple Arsenal, triple Man City. Whether you want to go for attackers or defenders is totally up for you. Again, we've got Girona in there at 3rd place, so again, not really too many prominent attackers from Girona, so that could be one where we look at a defensive position for Girona, but again we'll look at the key players in just a sec. We've also got Real Madrid in there as well. They're playing against Borussia Dortmund, so even though the odds put that at 44% to score 3 goals, I think it's kind of inflated a little bit. I probably wouldn't be wanting too many Real Madrid players. I guess you could maybe go for a Vinicius Junior and Mbappe up front if you wanted to. Other than that, don't think I would look at Real Madrid for this week. That's one for your future match days. Monaco up there again, Sporting up there, Atalanta. It's all the same teams, you know. These are the teams you want to be targeting for match day 3 and getting as many as the good players as you possibly can to get the highest score for just this one match day. So we've got the key players next. These are the ones with the good fixtures that I think are your best options from each of these teams. So for Man City, Haaland, of course, an absolute nailed-on player. You know, I think Haaland should be the number 1 spot, the first player in any Limitless team for this week. Phil Foden as well, done well in match day 2, get man of the match as well. Has been rested today in Manchester City's game, so I think he should start again in the Champions League. He's definitely one I'd be looking at. And then picking between, I've got Lewis and Vardiol there because they do have the attacking threat. But you could also go for a Ruben Diaz or an Akanji if you're more interested in steady ball recoveries. Personally, I prefer Lewis Vardiol, but it's up to you. And again, with like the likes of Rico Lewis, you know, he could potentially be dropped for Kyle Walker, so it's a little bit more risky. I think they play on the second day as well, so if you have him, you can't sub him out. So potentially one that you could look at, someone who's more nailed to play, like a Vardiol, like a Ruben Diaz. Just so you know you've got a better chance at that clean sheet and obviously those points. Now for Salzburg, again, we've got Salzburg, Monaco, Girona here. These aren't going to be expensive players. These are just kind of fillers that you can go for just because they've got a nice fixture. Again, I probably wouldn't double up or triple up on these teams, or mainly triple up. I think you probably could double up on mainly Girona, who look pretty decent. But with Salzburg, I've only got Glauc in there. Again, they haven't really been great, Salzburg, so I probably wouldn't pick him myself, but he is the best option for Salzburg if you did want to go there. With Monaco, we've got Zakaria and Vanderson against Red Star. Now, Zakaria, I think, scored in either Matchday 2 or Matchday 1, and he picked up, I think, 14 ball recoveries in Matchday 2, so if you want to go for someone who is going to be a huge differential, I can't see him being any more than 1% owned, he could be a decent option. You know, he picked up a lot of ball recoveries and he's obviously scored as well, and I think he's got a couple in the league as well, which does make him a pretty good option, and again, like I said, a huge differential. Same with Vanderson as well, a cheap defender. He is very attacking. I think he got an assist I want to say, in Matchday 2. I could be totally wrong on that. He's definitely had an attacking return at least, and again, he's picked up a couple of assists. He's definitely one of the more attacking defenders of the Monaco defence. Again, if you wanted to pick someone from that position. Now with Girona, we've got Gazzaniga, who is obviously the goalkeeper, and Gutierrez as well, who I don't actually have in the draft that we've got, but I think Gutierrez could be a really, really nice option. I think he's 4.5 million, and a really good pick. You know, I think he's created 17 chances in the La Liga this season, which is, I think, more than double than the second player for Girona in the league. And he's picked up a few assists. He's definitely looking really, really nice. Again, a very good pick for like wildcarders who need to save on some budget. We'll look at that when we look at the wildcard video. But I really like Gutierrez as a pick, even on the Limitless this week. Again, a high chance of a clean sheet for Girona, and he's very attacking as well. He could be a really nice option. Now for Atalanta, we have 3 picks. We've got Lookman, who I think is, again, pretty nailed on for a Limitless this week because he's been fantastic. Retegi, who was subbed or was rested in Matchday 2, but still a nice option if we can get some early team news that he's going to play. Then Zappacosta, who in my opinion is the best defender for the Atlanta defence. He plays at left wing back. He can also play as a right wing back, but he's very nice at getting forward, picking up assists as well, and he could be a pretty decent pick as well. For AC Milan, we've got Pulisic, who's been AC Milan's starting star player so far this season, and then Theo Hernandez, who is always a really good pick in UCL Fantasy. Again, a very forward-getting defender, which is obviously what you're going to want when picking players for fantasy football. For Inter, we've got Bastoni, Sommer, and Taremi. Now, Bastoni and Sommer, basically because Inter are very, very solid defensively. They're playing against young boys. I'm expecting a clean sheet there. And these two are absolutely nailed. Sommer's not going to get rested. Bastoni's not going to get rested. Again, I mentioned it previously with Inter doing a lot of rotation. You want to be picking the nailed players. You know, I think it's definitely a week where you would want to triple up on Inter Milan against young boys. But the rotation does make it a little bit of a problem. You know, Lautaro Martinez would be a great pick, Thuram would be a great pick, but neither of them have played in the first 2 match days, which is why I've got Taremi in there. Again, we do usually tend to get early news for Inter Milan, so if we can get a predicted lineup or an expected lineup, then I would look to triple up on those guys. Taremi has started and done very well in the first 2 Champions League games, so if you do want to pick an attacker who is going to be a huge differential, I think Taremi could be a really nice option. But Bastoni gets ball recoveries, he's nailed in the defence, a really good pick, and of course Sommer is a really nice goalkeeper. Now finally we've got Arsenal. I think this is the more easy one to pick. You know, they've got Shakhtar, we've mentioned already about tripling up on them. I think Saka, Havertz, Gabriel is the 3 that you're going to want to go for. Havertz obviously takes up an extra striker spot, which does make it a little bit more difficult, but I think he's still got a really good chance to do well. You know, Saka, again, someone who's probably going to be nailed. He did miss out at the weekend. I think he should be fit for the Champions League. He would be the first pick on the Arsenal sheet. And then, of course, Gabriel as well. One of the biggest goal threats from corners as a defender. And again, like I said, a very nice chance of a clean sheet this week. So with that being said, this is the draft that I've put together for this week, basing it off of all of the stats we've just looked at. Now, obviously, as I said, I'm using the Limitless chip this week. This will probably not be my final team. This is a draft I put together a couple of days ago, which obviously caters to the Limitless in Matchday 3. So up front we've got Havertz, Gyökeres and Haaland. Haaland and Havertz we've obviously mentioned before. Now Gyökeres is someone who hasn't been included in the video. Sporting haven't been there, but they do still have a good fixture against Sturm Graz. Only the fact that it's away from home makes it a little bit more difficult. So again, you can easily chop and change this, you know, whatever you want to. I'm just picking, like, giving an example of an Limitless draft. In midfield, we've got Foden, Lookman, Saka, Pulisic, and then we've got Wirtz on the bench. Again, already mentioned with Leverkusen, they are playing away from home against Brest. They don't have high chances of getting clean sheets and goals, but these guys have huge ceilings. You know, Wirtz, Ronaldo, Frimpong, all 3 of them have been really, really good in Matchday 1 and Matchday 2. Now, Brest are a pretty difficult opponent. I think they're sitting like 2nd or 3rd in the Champions League group, or league stage table now. So I don't think it's going to be an easy game. So again, you could maybe only go for 2 of these guys if you wanted, but I've got 3 of them for now. They've probably been some of the 3 best players in fantasy football so far, so definitely ones that I quite like as options. And then the defence we've went for is Gabriel, Hakimi, Vardiol, and then obviously the 2 Leverkusen ones we were just speaking of. So I've picked Vardiol as the defender. He's nailed on. You know, if we've seen Walker miss out for Manchester City on Sunday, could potentially be a rest for this game on Wednesday. If not, I think Rico Lewis again could be a good pick. I went for Hakimi as well. He's very attacking. I think everyone knows this. He's been a popular player in the first 2 match days, even though PSG haven't had the easiest of fixtures. I think PSG is a good, PSV is a good fixture for him to do quite well. Again, you could potentially look to move him out and get in like a Gutierrez for Girona. I think it's a decent pick. And then we've obviously got Gabriel in there as well. Now for the goalkeepers, I've got Sommer and Gazzaniga. Gazzaniga is in there to cover off that Girona defence. You know, the 3rd most likely to keep a clean sheet this week. So I definitely want to be getting in at least one Girona defender. And they do play on the first day, so he's a very nice option to rotate with Sommer. So that's going to round it off for the Limitless Guide video. Again, as I mentioned, we will have a wildcard one out in a couple of hours, and then of course my team selection will be out tomorrow for my Limitless team for Matchday 3. So if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the video, and of course make sure to subscribe for the future UCL Fantasy videos, and I'll see you all in the next one.